What's going on, Big Schlong Gamers? It's Spencer, and today we're going to be going over PhD, it being added, all the things that's good about it, and why it will be good for Cold War. If you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. You know how this goes, man. Just do it. Come on, you need to. But speaking of that, shout out to Mikey France and Alpha Wolf. They subscribe to me, and if you do, I'll give you, the big homie, a shout out. Plus, if you don't, I'll literally come to your house, use a catapult, and shoot watermelons into your window. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is PhD Flopper? I understand not everybody knows it. After all, Black Ops 1 is, 10 years old at this point? PhD Flopper, it is a perk that completely negates self-inflicted damage. However, the player will still groan and suffer temporary movement reduction when falling down from an elevated area. This means ultimately, if you're jumping off from a zipline point or a rappel point, you know how you kind of like slow down for a second and you're like, you got blood on your screen, all that nasty yucky. Yeah, that's that. PhD Flopper kind of negates that, but as many of you well know, stamina up kind of just stops this from happening. So that's one of the things I'm a little curious about with PhD Flopper just in general, just because stamina mainly takes the purpose, and I believe personally that PhD is mainly going to be exclusive explosive tiers, which is really exciting, and will personally, I believe, will change the meta. But hey, we'll get into that a little bit later. But some of the other things about this perk also is, the main thing of this perk, why everybody loves it, is PhD Flopper. The name Flopper, okay? When you were able to flop and like dolphin dive back in the other games like Black Ops 1 and 2, it would, like, you would flop over on the ground, but if you had this perk, it would be explosive. So every time you'd flop onto the ground, you would do a bunch of explosive damage. You know, it's about 7.5 meters, which is pretty big in terms of just explosive, and also it's free. It did about 5,000 maximum damage at the center of the blast, which is really good. But, you know, in Cold War health, it might be a little bit more different. You know, maybe like 45 or 50,000, just because, you know, 5,000 damage then was a lot more to now. It is a really good effect. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but PhD Flopper, it's definitely going to be one of those things that hopefully, in terms of its tiers, will fix it, make it good, all that cool nonsense, which is really exciting. I personally love this perk, and it can kill a lot of zombies. I mean, just with one hit alone on round 20, you can just kill up to 30 zombies, I believe, just with that one blast, if you can properly, I don't know, approximate how many zombies are around you and where to hit them exactly, because you can't land on their heads. You have to land on the ground. So if you land on a zombie's head, it's not really going to work that well. I mean, unless you go through and then you hit the ground and blow them up. But sometimes it can glitch out, especially in the older games, and you can die from it. But we don't know how this is going to work. And you might be thinking as well, Spencer, you can't flop in Cold War zombies. You literally just slide around. And that's another issue, and another speculation on this perk as well that we don't know just about yet. We'll obviously get posted up with tiers and stuff, and if you're watching this in the future, long away, and you guys already know, I'll probably put it in the description, so check it if you're probably like a week's time from now, or about when season 6 drops. But that's the only thing. And another thing why people are speculating why you possibly, if you want, get tiers that will, instead of having a slide, you will have a flop, which will be interesting to see. I don't think it'll happen personally. I think maybe that they'll change this perk to adjust and work like the form in Black Ops 4, where you can use it as a sliding, like PhD slider. It was used for that in order to actually have an effect, which it kind of did work, but it had this weird charging effect, so you couldn't just be broken and overpowered, which Treyarch usually does. But hey, I mean, we definitely got to get into some more ideas how this perk will work, but you know, it's looking pretty good overall just for this perk alone. Hopefully it will be good, unlike some of the other remakes and remasters. And some of you might be upset about this being, you know, another remaster perk, but at the end of the day, it's still a good perk all around. PhD, in my opinion, would be really good in Cold War, but it's not a necessary perk like Stamina Up or Deadshot Daiquiri. And you might be wondering why isn't this exactly going to be a necessary perk? Well, at least for me, PhD Flopper has always been a perk about explosives, and as you guys know, in Cold War Zombies, there are plenty of explosives, and they're not even just weapons. I mean, there's Semtexes, C4s, all that cool nonsense, which are pretty good, but at the end of the day, we really want weapons to be played with. So, unfortunately about this perk, splash damage isn't too much of an issue within Cold War Zombies. I mean, as many of you know, if you have armor equipped and or if you just have Ring of Fire, or just using an explosive weapon in general, they're not really going to kill you unless, say, it is a very heavy, like, say, Sigma rocket launcher, and you point it directly at your feet and shoot yourself, and even then you only take a maximum of about like 100 something damage. In other games, like the Panzerschreck, if you just shot yourself without Jug, you would ultimately die, which is something crazy. But maybe PhD Flopper will do something about just negating all damage, which would be kind of cool, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be that really useful because you only take so little damage already from explosive weapons, so it might just be kind of a waste of a tier in terms of the tier tree, which we will get our hands on sooner or eventually. Also, you know, like I said earlier with stamina, there's really going to be no tier in this that'll actually affect fall damage, just because stamina already has a tier like that, which will be interesting to see how the tiers will actually work within this and how it will actually play in Cold War and ultimately determine if it's a good perk or not. Now, one thing that this thing will actually let us use is explosives, and hopefully if there's actual good maybe tiers on this that maybe say double the damage of explosives rather than negate the damage, or in terms of something like that, it will make the perk actually really good, and a reason why I'm being very extremely hopeful about this perk, because it is a pretty good solid perk, and all of us, mainly most of us, know it, but for those who don't, you might be able to see how good it was in this game, Cold War, rather than it was in, like, say, Black Ops 1. Now, I know this is very specific, but the M1911 pistol in this game is just a pain. The Mustang and Sally isn't in this game, and I know that might seem like such like a specific thing, but the Mustangs and Sally, if you weren't running the PhD Flopper back then with those boys, you were really missing out. I mean, those things were absolutely goated. Everyone loved them, and personally, one of my favorite weapons in Black Ops 1, easily, and the other games as well. Now, also another thing, the tiers could be the best. They genuinely can, and the reason I believe that is because even though we may have not got double tap, PhD can maybe, if the tiers are, you know, correctly made, can possibly double the damage of, say, explosives, or even make explosives like clusters. For example, like if you shoot like a rocket launcher, it'll, instead of shooting one, it'll shoot two, like one on the ground, and then like two mini ones will pop out. Or say you throw a grenade, and instead of having one blast, you have two or three or four, something along those lines, which personally I believe would be really interesting to see, because even though the Semtexes or the C4s, Molotovs, all that, they are really good in Cold War, they are kind of like small. So if you have something that kind of maybe increases the radius of explosive damage range, it would actually make them a lot better, and another reason why to pick up more explosives rather than, say, like a little Gersh device or something along those lines. And speaking of that, I believe personally PhD will allow us to actually carry more explosive weapons, or even make them cheaper in terms of a buy station, which will be interesting to see nonetheless. But we will see the PhD tiers, which will be, you know, nonetheless interesting. Now, this could be the best remastered easily, by far. I mean, we've had Mule Kick, Tombstone, Death Perception, and now Mule Kick and Death Perception have been actually some pretty good ones. I mean, they weren't exactly the best at first, but people genuinely like them now, which is really good. Tombstone, I don't know about that homie, okay? That homie, he's toast. There ain't no saving him, all right? Like J. Cole said, if she don't save her if she doesn't want to be saved, okay? That's just the rules, okay? I don't make them up. Now, PhD, realistically, it could be really good, especially with the tier tree. I really want to heavily focus a part of this video mainly on the tier tree and what I believe, you know, would make this perk even better than it was before. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't exactly know like anything about what's leaked or anything like that, so this is pure speculation. At the end of the day, PhD, it could have some really good tiers, and one of the reasons I believe is, even though it doesn't have, say, the, you know, the flopper effect in Cold War, maybe a tier will introduce that kind of thing, or maybe it'll increase the damage of explosives, how they work, or mainly, you know, maybe you can get extra capacity with explosive weapons, because The ammo capacity in this game for explosive weapons is absolute dog water. I'm pretty sure it's less than, say, a base weapon shotgun starting out in this, and that is horrible. It is so sad, and hopefully this will increase, say, maybe attachments we can get with explosives, or just how they work in general, which I think would be really interesting to see, which, you know, at the end of the day is what we all want to see. But I mean, hey, this is just all speculation. We will soon to see the tiers, and I'll probably go over them eventually in a later video. But gamers, PhD, it's looking pretty good, and hopefully we'll get some tiers to see, and we'll actually have, you know, a bright definition, because let's be honest here, the perk in a game, especially in Cold War, it doesn't really matter all too much, because they just remaster tiers with perks. I mean, even, you know, Elemental Pop, it's literally Electric Cherry just remastered into some other name with extra effects, which ultimately it should have done, say, in other games. But hey, we'll definitely see. But gamers, if you haven't already, leave a like, subscribe, all that cool nonsense. You know how it goes, man. Just check out the links in the description, all that nonsense. You know, if you made it this far, you deserve a cookie, and I love you. But on that, gamers, I'll see you guys in the next one day. See ya. Woo!
Nighttime.